Okay, testing, let's give this another try. Hi everyone, it's Alex from Long Run Hobbies again. First I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's been checking out the first videos on the channel. It's amazing to see how many people are interested in Warcry and giving it a go, and that's really been the inspiration for today's video. So in today's video, I want to talk about making it easier for potential new players, maybe yourself, to get into Warcry for the first time by covering what, in my opinion, are the best factions, best standard factions, I would say actually, to get started playing the game with. So the first thing I need to talk about is the difference between bespoke and standard warbands in Warcry. Bespoke ones are ones that you can find sold in one box. They're ones that have been made purely specifically for the game. They have their own rules, cards, and so on. Standard warbands are those that are taken from the main factions in Age of Sigmar. They might be ones that you're familiar with, or you might already have your own collection with which you're interested in using those models as part of a Warcry warband. Now, the warbands that I've chosen today, I've chosen for three factors. The first is their cost. They're going to be easy and relatively cheap for you to pick up. You're not going to have to spend an arm and a leg collecting these warbands. The second is that their play styles are relatively straightforward. You're not going to have to know too much about them or the game itself in order to understand how you're going to make the most out of these warbands and really how they should be operating. The last point is kind of what I'm calling friendliness, which is a weird one, I grant, and that's basically how forgiving the warband is, and also kind of how fun they are to play. So these warbands are ones that I think you can make a few mistakes with while you're learning the game. They're fairly resilient, they're not going to punish you too much if you make the odd misplay here and there. And they are warbands that can also put out a decent amount of damage. I think when you're starting the game, it's really fun to be able to use high damaging units and to take the opposing models off the board. It's the most fun part of any war game, let's face it. So all of these warbands pack a punch in spades. So the first warband that I want to talk about are one of my personal favourites, and they are the Kruleboyz. Now the Kruleboyz I put on this list because they are really, really cheap. You can find these models absolutely everywhere for bargain prices. They used to be one of the starter factions in the last edition of Age of Sigmar, so the second-hand market is flooded with their models. As a warband, they are pretty hoardy. You can feel quite a lot of them. You're generally looking at 9, 10, maybe even upwards of that models in a warband, which is a lot. In terms of their playstyle and their abilities, they like to kind of sort of swarm the board and be fairly hard to remove, and they've got some nice abilities that spike their damage and give them some increased movement buffs. Where they do fall down a little bit is in their offensive output. They're not the killiest warband, and they do tend to rely on their heroes and allies that they can kind of bring in to help them out to do all the heavy lifting. Even so, I think they're a really good warband for board control, for getting in all the corners of the boards, grabbing objectives and so on, and they can still do a decent amount of damage if you use their heroes well. A nice starting warband for them would be something like 5 Gut Rippers, and then I'd recommend getting 2 or 3 of their heroes that you can pick up for very cheap. A Killer Boss and his Stabcrot companion, the Swampcrawler Shaman has some interesting tricks, and I think you should bring their Potgrot too for some fun. And if you want to add an extra dimension to the game in your warband and learn a bit about ranged combat, the Bolt Boy Boss is also a really good pick. So there you've got a decently well-rounded warband with a good amount of numbers too, and I think something that you can start enjoying the game with for relatively cheap, and it's going to be a fun warband to pilot too. Now the next warband on my list I might like even more than the Kruleboyz, and those are the Slaves to Darkness, the brutal followers of Chaos themselves. They are the heart of the game of Warcry and where kind of everything sprang from. I really, really like this warband as a starting point because they are rock solid and can pack a punch. You don't need too many of their models either. Chaos Warriors are amongst some of the best and most reliable units in the game, in my opinion. They're super, super tough, and they're not going to flinch even when confronted with something very, very scary. Slaves to Darkness are all about brawling. They're all about damage, getting right up into the face of your opponent and swinging spiked weapons, normally to great effect. Their abilities as well are all designed about maximizing their damage output, as kind of makes sense with a warband that's all about individual and personal glory. They're not the most synergistic warband, but individually, piece by piece, they are very strong and very, very reliable. They're an elite kind of warband, even though you can make them a bit hoardier if you want, but a really, really good starting point for something that's relatively, I say this in the nicest way, relatively brains free, would be, I would say, about 5 Chaos Warriors, a Chaos Lord for some real punch, a Chaos Sorcerer if you want to kind of add something again that's a bit more range focused, and also I think is quite a nice narrative element to add to your warband. And then you can throw in a Chosen as well, or something like that, for just a bit of close combat heft. As a last thing to say about the Slaves to Darkness, something that I just can't not talk about is that I think they are so unbelievably flavoursome and a really, really nice point to jump off if you want to create a very bespoke and personal feeling faction. They have access to so many amazing allies as a Chaos Warband that can give your warband so much flavour, and you can take them in any direction that you want to, whether that be from a hobby perspective, a lore perspective, or a playstyle perspective. And again, not too expensive to pick up. They might require 3 or 4 small purchases to really get started, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not too bad. Okay, so we've had 2 pretty brutal factions right off the bat. We're going to go for some good guys now, and my next pick are going to be the Sylvaneth. Now, the Sylvaneth are a little bit different to the Slaves to Darkness in that they're going to introduce you as a new player to a different side of the game, and that's less about direct, straight-up damage, even though they can do that, but it's more going to kind of train you into experiencing the game from the perspective of movement and tricks and little things that can really kind of frustrate your opponents, specifically in regard to movement, which is one of the most core and critical components of Warcry. Like I say, they're not straight-up brawlers, but a really, really good cornerstone for a starting warband are something like the Kurnoth Hunters. They're really beefy and they can pack a big punch, and a box of them along with a box of Spite or Tree Revenants is going to be the perfect starting point, in that you've got complemented kind of the 2 sides of the warband. You've got real damage and real heft on one side, but you've got the tricks and the mobility that the Sylvaneth like to sport on the other side. Another thing that I really, really like about this warband is that you don't actually have to venture too far outside the warband to find something that really, really works. Sylvaneth can absolutely stand on their own 2 feet without any help from any other allies or any other factions. They're a warband that, if you decide to stick with them, can be really, really rewarding, and they can kind of fold into any kind of play style that you like. Again, they can be brilliant in tying up your opponent in knots, super, super fast, or straight down the middle, very, very damaging. I also can't, again, neglect the fact that I think they're a fantastic warband with which to hobby and paint. I think you can give a Sylvaneth miniature to basically anyone at any stage of enjoying Warhammer, and they're going to have a good time playing and painting with them. They offer so much scope to you as a hobbyist, and they're a ton of fun both on and off the board. Okay, but enough about all the funny stuff and all the shenanigans. Let's go again, straight down the middle. Pure violence is the Ironjawz stock in trade. Now, they are the big, beefier Auric cousins of the Kruleboyz, and in my opinion are one of the most straightforward factions to play in all of Warcry. They are immensely tough, they have high toughness and a lot of wounds. They're very hard to get off the board, and offensively they pack one of the meanest, greenest punches out of any of the warbands that exist, especially their hero characters, who can be utterly terrifying when they really, really get going. All they want to do is to get in combat and just to absolutely wallop their opponents. Generally, you'll be looking at between 7 and 8 models, and they do have a little bit of a hurdle to cross when you're playing them, in that they are very slow. The good news though, and why I'm confident offering them up to you as a beginner, is that they have plenty of abilities that make up for that lack of movement, things that can get them to rocket across the board really, really fast and to get where they want to be, which is in close combat. With Ironjawz, you're going to be learning how to make a small number of models really, really count and really pull their weight. But I think that there's not too much of a learning curve. They're also quite a cheap warband with which to start. The second-hand market has loads of Ironjawz up there for relatively cheap, and with just a box of brutes and 5 Ardboys, you can make quite a large number of combinations straight off the bat. If you want to expand from there, you can pick up a mega boss, a war chanter, or some of their other regular troops, but their roster is quite condensed. There's not too many of them, and you're not going to get lost in the weeds when exploring this warband. Like I say, they're quite condensed, they're quite easy to learn, they're very tough, so they're quite forgiving on you as a beginner, and you are guaranteed to be taking some heads when you play them. I think they're really fun to paint, I think they're really quick to get on the board too, and you're gonna have a very good time if you play these guys. Okay, so we're coming to the end of my list now, and we are going to go with the Skaven. Now, the Skaven might initially, if you look at their roster, look like quite a daunting list to start with, because they have so many profiles on it. We're going to simplify, and for you as a beginner, all we're going to look at right now are their core units, which have been promoted in the new starter sets for Age of Sigmar. They have everything you need to make a really, really good warband right off the bat for very cheap. Rat Ogres are absolutely fantastic and are going to be your go-to damage dealers for Skaven. Basically, for the longest time, they're awesome and don't really have a downside. So if you pick up 2 of these, you're going to be absolutely set to start wrecking people. As well as that, Clan Rats are some of the greatest small little chaff units out there, perfect for scoring points with treasure objectives, and I'll be honest, just being really, really annoying. Finally, they've got a bunch of really great heroes. I think a really good start is maybe the Grey Seer. You can find loads of them because they've come out in the starter box. Grab a Rat Ogre or 2. I'd probably recommend 2 as a beginner because they're just super fun to play. And then 5 or 6 Clan Rats, and you're ready to go right from the off and start playing your first games of Warcry. I think Skaven are a great army to stick with as well, because like I say, they have such a deep roster. There's so much exploration that you can do with them as a warband. They can offer you a great deal of scope and enjoyment in exploring how to bring in Underworld's warbands to your game of Warcry. Not only are they really amazing miniatures and really fun to paint, they're actually really quite powerful, and they've got some good tricks going for them as well. Skaven are reckoned by the Warcry community as being one of the best, if not the best faction out there right now. So if you're all about absolutely stomping your opponents and dominating your local meta, that might also be a reason why you want to pick them up. But at least in the short term, picking up a warband for very, very cheap and starting the game quickly and easily, there aren't many bets that I think beat the Skaven right now. Okay, thanks for sticking with me. We're in the final stretch now, and it's all about Stormcast. This was inevitable. This was absolutely inevitable, wasn't it? Stormcast are absolutely flipping everywhere. They're cheap as chips, and they're really, really easy to paint because it's basically just metal, isn't it? They're not everyone's cup of tea. I always say that with Stormcast, but I do think they are the best and easiest starting point to start experiencing Warcry with. I'm going to cover 2 factions within Stormcast because they have a number of different chambers, as they're called, and each one has a different roster and different models profiles. The first that I'm going to start with, and potentially the slightly trixier one, though not necessarily in a bad way, are the Ruination Chamber. What I really like about them the most is that they have one of the most condensed rosters in all of Warcry. There's only essentially a handful of profiles on there, so you're not going to get lost. Their Reclusians are super, super tough and should be the bedrock, the backbone of any Ruination Chamber warband. As well, their Prosecutors offer loads and loads of great mobility and flying support, as well as a nasty teleport ability, which is absolutely fantastic in getting them anywhere you want them to be. As well as that, Griffcrows offer just a little means of getting some extra bodies on the board, and they've got a couple of really good hero options to complement all of this. They can absolutely take a beating. They're rock solid, especially those Reclusians, and they can dish it out too. Some of their abilities are a bit more intricate and a bit tricksy than some of the other warbands on this list, and the Thunderstrike Stormcast that I'm about to come to, because they're all about not just sometimes boosting their own power potential, but taking away the ability of your opponent to use their abilities, in fact, and to also reduce their damage output greatly. They're very rewarding, and they can mix it up at the top tables of tournaments. If you pick up the Ruination Chamber, you're going to have a good time. Now, the last faction on this list I want to talk about are the Thunderstrike Stormcast. All the warbands I've spoken about so far aren't too expensive when you look at the second-hand market. However, none of them even comes close to how cheap it is to pick up a Thunderstrike warband. And here's the kicker, they're actually pretty darn good too. Thunderstrike Stormcasts have a decently sized roster. Most of it is pretty usable and pretty fun. Their heroes have some fantastic abilities that don't just deal direct damage, but synergize really nicely with the rest of this warband. Being Stormcast, you're looking at 6 or 7 models maximum in a warband, so they're really quick to paint up and get on the board. The bedrock of any Thunderstrike warband are going to be their Liberators. Something that's absolutely mad about Liberators is that you can pick up 5 of them for under £10, at least here in the UK, which would be, I don't know, $15 or $20, something like that. They are really good, and it's already got you 5/6 of the way to a completed warband. Throw in any hero that you like. I might recommend something, either a Liberator Prime, a Knight Arcanum, or potentially one of the new Knight Questor, and you are good to go for a price that is less than half of that, potentially, of a bespoke warband, which is completely crazy. And the thing is, it's quite good too. From there, you've got a fantastic starting point to branch out wherever you want into the wider Thunderstrike roster. They have some brilliant characters and units, like I've said. I cannot overstate how much I love Annihilators. They're really tough. Some of the toughest models in the entire game, and in the right circumstances, when they get into contact, can absolutely flatten the opposition too. As well as that, the models that you can ally in from the Warhammer Underworlds range and the Warhammer Heroes range, in fact, and they have some equally unique abilities that can add a dimension to playing Thunderstrike Stormcast that keeps them really refreshing to play. They're very replayable, and they're very easy for you as a beginner to learn, because all they want to do is stomp up the board, get onto objectives, and basically bully anything off the objectives that might try to contest them. My final note with all these warbands, I didn't really want to go into it, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot, is that they've all got some great battle traits as well. Battle traits are something that you might want to look at further down the line as you get into Warcry, potentially not want to bother with in your first couple of games, but essentially they are a rule that every faction has access to if they don't bring in kind of external allies. It's maybe, I would call it like a little reward if you keep everything in faction. All of the factions that I've covered today have a battle trait that tends to be quite good, quite well regarded, and ones that you are going to use. So I would definitely advise checking that out if you're interested in any of these warbands. Anyway, I hope that's been really useful to you. Let me know if it has or it hasn't, in which case I apologise for wasting your time. But I'm very grateful nonetheless for you hanging out with me and for wanting to learn more about Warcry. I've been absolutely taken aback by the warmth with which I've been received in these first few videos on YouTube. So I do want to say thank you to any and all of you who've checked out any of these videos. You are also a great source of inspiration for me and the rest of the community. So if there are some factions that maybe you think I've missed that deserve a shout out, or maybe that helped you to get started, or that you really want to try and get some opinions on, please pop them down in the comments. This is how we're going to keep this community strong, keep it growing, and help people to continue to enjoy this fantastic game of Warcry. Anyway, I've been Alex, this has been Long Run Hobbies. Thank you again so much for checking out this video, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.